Hi, I'm Christina Bausch. I'm a physical therapist here at Rebound Physical Therapy in Topeka, Kansas, and I specialize in treating pelvic floor dysfunctions. So today what I wanted to talk about was how to do a pelvic floor or a Kegel contraction. So a lot of people may not be confident that they are, they may have been told by the doctor to, just do some Kegels, and they may not be confident that they know what they're doing. Or a lot of times they may think they know what they're doing, but they actually aren't doing it correctly. So today I wanted to just break it down a little bit and give you some pointers on how to contract the pelvic floor correctly. And keep in mind too that this can be challenging, so don't give yourself, if you're struggling with knowing if you're doing it correctly or not, that really is something that would be helpful to do some physical therapy for and work with a pelvic floor therapist to make sure that you are getting it correctly. But we'll go over the basics today and hopefully give you some advice. So if we think about the pelvic floor, so if you can see my model here, so pubic bone in the front, tailbone in the back. If we look at it from the underside, there's this whole bowl of muscles down in the bottom of the pelvis, and that is what we're talking about when we talk about your pelvic floor. So it really is just kind of a sling of supportive muscles that go from the tailbone clear to the pubic bone, and it's going to support the pelvic organs. So for women, that could be the bladder, uterus, and bowels. So what we want for those muscles is that when you are, just going throughout your day, you're laying down, you're sitting, and those muscles are relaxed, we want them to be pretty shut off. So it's not that we need to be keeping those muscles contracted all the time, but when you do get up and move, or you cough, or you sneeze, or you lift, or do something exerting, we do want those muscles to then contract and provide some more support for those pelvic organs. So if I'll set my model down for a second, but I'll use my arm kind of as an example of what those pelvic floor muscles are doing. So there's kind of a two-part action when those muscles contract. So if you imagine my arm at rest, there's a little bit of muscle activity going on, but not very much. When those muscles contract, they are going to kind of do two things. So they're going to kind of squeeze in, and then they're going to lift up and provide a little bit more support for those organs. So it's almost like when they're relaxed, that bowl is deeper. When they contract, they're kind of lifting up, and that bowl is becoming more shallow. It's kind of moving everything up towards the head. So things to think about: when those muscles contract, they're going to lift up, but then in between each contraction, we want those muscles to shut all the way back down. So for some people, they may have trouble shutting those muscles off. So being really mindful of getting a good contract, but then letting it shut all the way back off is equally as important as the contraction. So another piece to think about is you may be getting the muscles to contract, but we really have to pay attention to our abdominal pressure as we're contracting too. So sometimes people tend to contract and they may hold their breath as they're contracting. So what that does is when you hold your breath, your stomach gets pressurized, and that just pushes everything back down. So it really cancels out that benefit of the contraction. So what I like to have people do is to try to breathe out as they contract. So take a breath in, and then as you breathe out, try to contract and lift that muscle up while you're letting that breath out. That helps to keep that pressure balanced in the abdomen so that you're actually doing benefit and you're providing more support to those pelvic organs. Also, that carries over to function too. So especially if you're maybe having leaking with coughing or sneezing, or when you're lifting things up or moving around, getting used to coordinating that contraction with breathing helps to bridge that gap and kind of carry it over to function, so that we're using it that way correctly in real life. So I hope that gives you a little bit of food for thought with how to do that contraction correctly. Things that may be beneficial to do pelvic floor contractions for are if you're experiencing incontinence. That could, especially incontinence is due to weakness of the muscle. Sometimes there can be some incontinence that may actually be underlying that there's too much tension in the muscles. So if you're experiencing incontinence, if you're having prolapse issues, so like maybe the bladder or the uterus is dropping, that's really beneficial to help strengthen and provide more support for the muscles. But like I mentioned, sometimes there are conditions where those muscles are actually too active and they're holding too much tension in them already. So in those conditions, we don't really encourage you to do a lot of contractions of the muscles, but it's still beneficial to be able to figure out how to control those muscles to be able to contract and relax them. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of help in finding those muscles and doing that contraction. But if you still feel like you're struggling, definitely reach out to me. I would love to sit down and just go through it on a one-on-one basis and help you get that figured out so that your work that you're doing is going to be beneficial for you.